Hey everybody, did you know you can go to colinmullen.com to buy like a ton of art? Not like a literal ton, because that would be like way too much because paper's pretty lightweight. It's what it's known as. But you can go to colinmullen.com and buy maybe like one or two, because then you'd actually have places to hang that art. A ton would be a lot of art. Hey everybody, so most of the time on this channel I'm doing speed paints, but today I'm going to be talking about color theory. The idea that certain colors look pretty against each other and how to make them do that more often than not. And when you take a class in school, they sit you in front of a color wheel. And the color wheel is a great way of learning it. But then they force you to learn all these different names for these different combinations, and it gets really confusing. Here's an easier way of doing it. Pick 1 to 4 colors and that's your entire color palette. There you go. If that's all you needed to know, go ahead and flip away from the video now. But if you want to learn a little bit more, I'll teach you. So, color theory. Why do certain colors look good next to each other? Honestly speaking, I'm dumb, and I don't really understand how the eye works, but if you want to learn about that, I'd recommend looking into the Impressionists, because they were at the forefront of learning that. That was new science to them, and new science to the entire world when they started doing stuff, and so everything they did really honed in on how to exactly get to those colors and to those images in order to get the eye to be tricked into seeing colors that weren't there. Complementary colors, if we're going to talk about this frankly, are colors directly across from each other on the color wheel. If you want to mix them together, you get a gray. And what's neat about that is that desaturated colors, or colors that are less prismatic, less the original color that came out of the tube, fade back into the background, and more prismatic colors pop forward. Additionally, cooler colors, or the stuff on this side of the color wheel, also appear to recede into the background. So if you combine the two, you can make things look further away than they actually are. Take this image. The further away from the camera the trees and the land gets, the more slightly bluer, slightly grayer, and slightly less detailed things get, and it tricks the eye into thinking things are further away. That's how you can combine those two sets of knowledge into one idea. This actually tripped me up a bit when I was learning how to paint, because this is not something that's very obvious, but every color that you get has a little bit of another color in it. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're trying to mix the color purple. So you get a little bit of blue and you mix a little bit of red, and then you get some ugly color of purple that's not quite what you were looking for. In fact, it may even look a little bit brown. What happened? Well, the blue you have probably has a little bit of green in it, and so because green is red's complementary color, it makes it more desaturated and causes the color to slightly fade. So you don't get a vibrant purple, you get a kind of muted purple. That can be useful, but if you wanted to get a brighter, more purple than, what you had, you could take a red that has a slightly purple magenta hint to it, and you could take a blue that has a slightly violet hint to it, and you'll get something that looks a little bit more purple, and so on and so forth with all the other primary colors, that being blue, yellow, and red. I've seen people argue that CMYK would be a better way of mixing rather than red, yellow, blue, but I disagree. You're going to run into the same issue. Regardless if you decide to go with the traditional triadic of, red, yellow, blue, or you decide to go with cyan, yellow, and magenta, you're gonna have to have a slight variant leaning towards one side and then the other on each color. So, for instance, if you decide that you're going to go with red, yellow, blue, you need to have a slightly green blue and a slightly purple blue in order to get the effective colors to be able to mix both purple and green instead of getting really muddy, ugly colors. And the same with yellow and red in that sort of way. It's kind of obvious when you think about it, but it is just useful information, and I thought I'd bring it up. So let's say you really want to get a cool looking color combination, but you don't want to spend a whole lot of time learning all these fancy names for colors. I bet that you have some preferences as far as colors, and you have some ideas as far as what colors you like. One thing that I've recommended in the past is to keep a journal or a log of all these different images that you like. I've been doing that for a while. Let me give an example. For the Hermes image, I had seen this image. And so by seeing that image, I saw a lot of colors that I liked, and I was like, you know what? I'd like to make an image using that color palette. It's not stealing because colors just exist, and in fact, when you think about it, it's just a triadic color palette using the primary colors, but it looked good to me, and I was like, okay, let me do that, but not use any desaturated colors, and I came up with this. And I kept pushing that idea and moving this idea around, and it gave me a whole bunch of other different art. I've also used monochromatic because I saw some stuff that I enjoyed or really enjoyed a certain red or blue or what have you. By keeping track of the colors that you enjoy or keeping track of images you do enjoy, you can start to see some patterns. And I recommend doing that because I think that's a lot easier to see. You may just have an innate preference towards maybe complementary color patterns or triadic or monochromatic or analogous or whatever other fancy term you want to use for the different color combinations that exist. And so you could find those and start to work them into your own art. If you want to get something that's a little bit more cartoony or more surreal, you could always just ignore this advice about saturation and just use color straight out of the tube. But I think you'll find that you'll start looking a little bit Lisa Frank if you do that. And that's fine if that's the look you're going for. Everything that I've said in this video so far is a rule, and rules are meant to be broken. But now that you understand the rules, you can break them in much more effective, much more interesting ways. Anyway, this has been a crash course in color theory. I'm going to be talking about composition very soon in the future here, but I want to thank the people who made this video possible. Thank you to Mythos56 for the support. Thank you, Hayden. Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Tilda, my beautiful fiance, for being supportive not just here, but in life in general. Thank you, Plex, for the support. Thank you, Flenixia Theoran. Thank you, Wap Fu. Thank you, Mafa, for being an awesome mod and just a cool dude. Thank you, TBG Keru. And a special thank you to Doozer and Gur X Mistress for the $10 tier stuff. You guys are great. You're all great. Regardless if you can donate on Patreon or not, y'all are cool people. If you want to be on the end credits here, just go ahead and check down in the description. And otherwise, let me know in the comments what you'd like me to do in the future and how I can better improve this channel, what things you'd want me to cover, and so on and so forth. I'll see you next time. Bye.